The first time Captain Elias Rourke set foot on the surface of Xylar 7, he knew he was out of his depth. The air shimmered with a strange luminescence, like sunlight fractured into millions of tiny prisms. Towering structures made of organic metallic hybrids rose from the ground, pulsating softly as if the planet itself were breathing. Despite the beauty, Elias's gut clenched. Diplomacy with the Xylari was known to be delicate, their queen rumored to be mercurial and lethal to anyone who misstepped. He adjusted the strap of the gift satched at his side. It wasn't much, just a small, intricately carved sphere made from the rarest earth minerals, polished until it glimmered like liquid starlight, but it was all he could offer. It was a gesture, an attempt to bridge a gap that centuries of silence had made almost unbreachable. "Captain," a voice called behind him. Elias turned to see Lieutenant Mara Chin, his second-in-command, scanning the horizon with sharp, cautious eyes. "Are you sure this is a good idea? You know how unpredictable she can be. We could be making a fatal mistake." Elias gave a tight smile. "That's the point, Mara. We can't stay in orbit forever. If we want peace, we have to take a step forward, even if it's dangerous." The escort of Xylari guards approached, their bodies lithe, iridescent, and unnervingly humanoid in form, yet with subtle distortions that marked them as something utterly alien. Their eyes glowed with an inner light, scanning him as though they could see the thoughts in his head. Elias bowed slightly, the gesture of respect he had learned might prevent the ceremonial offense that could end badly. "You may proceed," one of them said, voice melodic yet hollow, carrying across the crystalline surface. The palace loomed ahead, an enormous structure made of living crystal, constantly reshaping itself, like a giant organism aware of his presence. At its center, Elias could see her, the queen. She floated above the crystalline dais, wings of translucent energy extending behind her, radiating power and authority. Her eyes were black as void, reflecting his image back at him, yet they seemed to pierce the very marrow of his bones. "Captain Elias Rourke of the United Earth Federation." The Queen's voice resonated in his mind rather than in the air. "You come bearing a gift. Explain yourself." Elias took a deep breath, feeling the weight of not just the moment, but the countless generations that had failed in diplomacy with her people. "Your Majesty," he began, bowing low, "I come in peace and with respect. I bring this offering as a symbol of goodwill, a token from my world to yours. May it signify our desire to coexist and learn from one another." From his satchel, he drew the sphere, holding it carefully as if it were a fragile life. Light danced across its surface, refracting the alien brilliance around him, and for a moment, even the Queen's expression softened. She extended one hand, long, slender, tipped with luminous claws. The air around her shimmered, as if the gravity itself were responding to her will. The sphere floated from his fingers to hers, hovering between them, suspended by a force he could not see. A silence fell. The palace seemed to hold its breath. The Queen studied the sphere, turning it with imperceptible movements. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. Not a polite, measured laugh, but a sound that shook the crystal walls, resonating deep in Elias's chest. "You dare bring this human trinket to me?" Her tone was sharp, laced with amusement and disbelief. "Do you not know that your species' attempts at diplomacy are laughable?" Elias swallowed, unsure whether he had failed or succeeded. Yet he maintained his composure. "Your Majesty, perhaps it is simple, but simplicity can be the purest form of respect." The Queen paused, studying him now, her eyes narrowing. "Most bring gifts to flatter me, to bribe my favor. Yet you offer something humble. Why?" He met her gaze evenly. Because the greatest offerings are not those that cost the most, but those given sincerely. I have nothing to gain from this, except the hope that one day, our people will understand each other. For a moment, the air itself seemed to still. Even the guards ceased their subtle movements, waiting for the Queen's judgment. Then, without warning, she bent closer, bringing her face nearly to his. Elias could feel the heat of her energy, the subtle vibrations of her presence pressing against him. You speak of understanding, yet you cannot comprehend the depths of what it means to face extinction as a species, she said softly. Her voice, though quieter, carried more weight than anything before. Your people are fragile, ephemeral. And yet, she looked at the sphere again, then back to him, her expression inscrutable. Perhaps there is merit in your gesture. Elias's heart pounded. He could feel the tension in the room, the fragile line between offense and acceptance. Your Majesty, if we are to coexist, we must take steps beyond fear and pride, even if small, even if symbolic. The Queen raised her wings, the energy surrounding her flaring like a storm contained in a bubble. Then, to everyone's shock, she reached out and touched his forehead with her luminous claw. The contact was not harmful, it was electric, filling his mind with images, memories, and emotions he could barely process. He saw worlds in turmoil, civilizations clashing, and the endless cycle of fear and misunderstanding that had kept humans and Xylari apart. And then he felt something more personal, her loneliness, the weight of ruling a species that had no room for error, the burden of power and expectation. When she withdrew, Elias staggered slightly, overwhelmed, yet he could sense the change in her tone. You are brave, human. Most would tremble or flee under such scrutiny. Yet you endure. Perhaps, she paused, her voice softening further. Perhaps there is hope for your kind, after all. The palace guards exchanged nervous glances. Even they had not expected the Queen's words or her touch to carry the intimacy it had. For the first time, the humans present felt that the alien hierarchy was not just formidable, but capable of warmth, judgment, and curiosity. Thank you, Your Majesty, Elias said carefully, bowing again. That is all I could ever hope for. The Queen looked at him for a long moment, then allowed a faint smile to grace her features, a gesture rare among her kind. You will stay, she said finally, almost as an afterthought, for the duration of the ceremonial convergence. Observe, learn, and perhaps teach me something of your people. Elias blinked in surprise. I would be honored. Thus began a sequence of days that no human diplomat had ever witnessed. He walked through corridors alive with shifting crystal and organic matter, attended gatherings where Xylari customs defied logic, and was introduced to alien scholars who spoke not with words, but through emotion and images projected directly into his mind. Yet, the most profound moments were in observing the Queen herself. She would spend hours in meditation, her thoughts like a storm of stars, and sometimes she would share pieces of her world with him. She taught him how the Xylari communicated, how they resolved disputes, how they approached knowledge, not as conquest, but as an intricate dance with existence itself. In return, Elias shared stories of humanity, the art, the failures, the triumphs, the fragility and resilience of his species. At first, the Xylari were skeptical, finding human history chaotic and inefficient. But gradually, they began to see the patterns, the persistence that had allowed humans to survive despite countless setbacks. The ceremonial convergence arrived, a gathering of Xylari leaders from all sectors, observing Elias as a human representative. The gift he had given the Queen now sat on a pedestal, a symbol of the tentative alliance. The Queen addressed the assembly, and her words surprised even the most veteran observers. "This human brought a gift," she began, her voice echoing in the crystal hall, "not for glory, not for gain, but as an offering of respect. Let this remind us that even the smallest gestures, when sincere, have the power to reshape destinies." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. It was unheard of for a Xylari ruler to credit a human in such a manner. Many leaned forward, watching Elias, trying to measure whether he had truly earned this recognition, or if it was some test they did not understand. Then, in a gesture that shocked everyone, the queen extended her hand toward him once more. "You will join our council, human," she declared, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Not as a subject, nor as a servant, but as an equal observer. Teach us your ways and learn ours." Gasps filled the hall. Never before had a human been granted such proximity to the highest echelons of Xylari power. Whispers ran like electricity. "This changes everything." Elias approached the dais, his heart pounding, feeling both the weight of responsibility and the exhilaration of the unprecedented. "I accept, Your Majesty," he said. "I will do my utmost to honor this trust." The queen's eyes softened, almost imperceptibly. "Then let us begin," she said. Years passed. Humanity and Xylari slowly built bridges that had seemed impossible. Trade flourished, knowledge flowed between worlds, and misunderstandings that once threatened war were replaced with dialogue and experimentation. And throughout it all, the gift, the small, polished sphere, remained on display, a reminder that even in the vast universe, a single act of sincerity could alter the course of history. Elias often reflected on that first meeting, on the shock he saw in everyone's eyes, including his own. What had seemed like a simple gesture, offering a humble gift, had become a catalyst for unprecedented cooperation. It was proof that even the most alien of hearts could be moved, even the most formidable of rulers could respond to honesty, and that courage sometimes meant simply daring to be sincere. One evening, as he watched the queen float above the crystalline dais, Elias found himself wondering if she had ever truly expected him to succeed. Perhaps not. Yet, by taking the risk, by showing humility and respect, he had created a bond stronger than any weapon or treaty. Her response, unexpected and transformative, had shocked everyone, including him. And in that shock lay the hope of countless generations yet to come. In the end, it wasn't the gift itself that mattered, but the courage to give it, the sincerity to stand before the unknown, and the willingness to see beyond fear. That small, shining sphere had opened a door to a new era, one where humans and Xylari could walk side by side, learning, teaching, and imagining together. And the queen, whose judgment had once been feared as absolute, had shown that even the most powerful beings could be swayed, not by force, nor by cunning, but by the simple, unassuming act of a human offering a gift. Years passed, and the small sphere remained on display in the heart of the Xylari Palace, a silent testament to the moment when two worlds first dared to meet without fear. Humanity and the Xylari began to cooperate in ways previously unimaginable, sharing knowledge, culture, and technology. Trade routes expanded between planets, joint research programs flourished, and misunderstandings that had once threatened annihilation were replaced by dialogue and collaboration. Elias often reflected on that first meeting. What had seemed like a simple gesture, a humble gift, had become a spark that ignited an era of interstellar diplomacy. The Queen's response, unexpected and transformative, had shocked everyone present, showing that even the most formidable beings could be moved by sincerity and courage. One evening, Elias stood before the Queen once more, watching her float above the crystalline dais, wings of energy shimmering softly. She looked at him, her eyes no longer merely those of a ruler, but of someone who understood the fragile power of trust and respect. "You changed something, Elias," she said quietly, her voice resonating deep in his mind. "Not only between our peoples, but within me as well. You proved that even the smallest act, when offered with honesty, can alter the course of history." Elias bowed, a mixture of humility and awe washing over him. It was never meant to be extraordinary, just honest. The queen inclined her head, a gesture that radiated warmth few humans had ever witnessed. "Then let us continue together," she said, "teaching, learning, and imagining a future where fear no longer dictates the fate of worlds." And in that quiet moment, Elias understood the full weight of what had happened. A simple gift, given without expectation, had rewritten the story of two civilizations. The shock it had caused was not just in her response, but in the ripple it sent across the cosmos, a reminder that courage, honesty, and respect could bridge even the most unimaginable divides. The gift had done more than open a door. It had opened a future. And for the first time in centuries, humans and Xylari alike dared to dream of peace, not as a fragile hope, but as a tangible reality.